Coming up, do you remember when the Leave campaign assured us that the economic impact of Brexit would be more than compensated for by a trade deal with the USA? Well, this week, Joe Biden officially killed off that particular unicorn for fear of American job losses, with an official spokesman for the White House confirming that all negotiations are now off. With the EU signing important new trade deals in Africa, it's been a week of Brexit contrasts between the UK and our former family. Stay tuned. The negotiations over a post-Brexit trade agreement between America and the UK supposedly started 5 years ago during the Trump administration. Not much has happened since then, but after Biden made clear this week that he has no interest whatsoever in signing a trade deal with Britain, everyone in Rishi Sunak's cabinet is now pinning their faint hopes on Trump being re-elected president in 2024 in the hope that he can bring about a resurrection of the dead trade deal unicorn. 17% of all British exports go to the US, but Washington isn't interested. The Americans are important to us, but we're no longer as important to them as we were when we were an EU member. As Trump's predecessor Barack Obama famously said in the run-up to the 2016 Brexit referendum, the UK would be at the back of the queue for a trade deal were the British people stupid enough to vote in favour of leaving the European Union. OK, he didn't use the word stupid, but we all know what he meant. And Obama's assertion has proved correct. British exports lost the favourable terms they received when the UK was part of the EU, and neither Trump nor Biden have prioritised talks since Brexit. Biden has now gone just a step further than his predecessor by abandoning any pretense to be working towards a trade deal. The main driver of Biden's decision appears to be the huge difference in how the British and American sides saw provisions for employee and environmental protections contained in any trade deal, with the Americans insisting that Sunak's government should adopt a worker-centric trade policy. One source from the US Senate told Politico that the US delegation were focused on ensuring high labour standards with guaranteed workers' rights and levels of pay and benefits. Another source from the US Congress told Politico that the American negotiators were also very focused on environmental issues and these very worthy things. I can only imagine the reaction of Sunak and his neoliberal cabinet on being challenged with a worldview so contrasting with their own. What does it tell you about where Britain is as a country when the world's largest polluter and the seat of free market capitalism, the USA, is refusing to consider a trade deal with us because of our poor environmental standards and our poor workers' rights? According to The Telegraph, when an agreement was being drawn up, it was because Trump had said that a trade deal with the UK was a possibility, so a non-Biden White House might be more amenable. It's quite clear at this stage what side the Sunak government would be on in any Biden v Trump rematch. Imagine that. The British government cheering on the orange pussy grabber, an insurrectionist with 50 felony charges, 34 counts of falsifying business records, a civil fraud trial and a sexual abuse and defamation lawsuit. Right about on brand for a post-Brexit British Conservative Party that becomes more like the Trumpian Republican Party by the day. But any hope Sunak has of Trump helping to rescue the Tories' disastrous Brexit is misplaced. Should Trump win the Republican nomination as expected, and even if he's allowed to stand for a second term by the Supreme Court, and even if he does win the presidency, I don't think it would do the Tories much good. Trump surely would be no less protectionist, no less isolationist than Biden is. His America First doctrine would still leave any trade deal with the UK floundering in the sunlit uplands of unicorn land, as the UK's isolated economy looks like it's entering recession yet again with a 0.1% contraction over the last 2 quarters. Ireland has stepped in to make the most of Brexit. Ireland's bilateral trade with France has mushroomed to a record €30 billion per annum in the wake of the UK leaving the EU. France is of course now Ireland's closest EU member geographically, and the massive growth is mostly at the expense of the UK. The former land bridge through which Irish goods used to travel, in other words, the British mainland, has been cut out of the equation, with a massive expansion in the number of ships travelling directly from Ireland to the continent. Irish goods exports to France have risen by a third to €7 billion a year, displacing British products that are subject to post-Brexit red tape and non-tariff barriers. And at the same time, Irish services exports to France almost doubled between 2016 and 2021, from €6.4 billion to €11.4 billion per annum, largely due to increased trade in financial services following the City of London losing its financial passporting rights under Brexit. A new report from Dublin City University academic Christiane Pettit said this week, following Brexit, Ireland had to adapt and rethink its suppliers and trading partners, focusing more on Europe. The exit of the UK from the EU has caused an adaptation and acceleration of trade between Ireland and the 27 member states of the single market, and in particular France. Ireland's exports to the EU have risen by 27% since the UK left. Britain's loss, Ireland's gain. As proof that Brexit has failed mounts by the day, there's yet more bad news on the horizon. Next month, the UK is set to introduce new, much-delayed border checks on food imports from the EU. A decision laden with consequences, both foreseen and unforeseen, the famous unknown unknowns, as this is brand new territory for the UK as it struggles with its self-imposed trade sanctions. The Brexit cult promised sovereignty and control. But the word Brexit is now synonymous with hurdles and hardships. The British economy and its people face new challenges as these cumbersome checks roll out in 2024. The repeated delays in implementing these import checks was a tacit admission of their complexity and their potential for disruption. Yet the government has pressed on, ignoring warnings from experts and industry leaders. This isn't just about longer queues at the border or more paperwork for businesses. It's about the tangible impact on the everyday lives of British people. Prices of everyday essentials are predicted to rise even further. Availability may fluctuate, and we can expect to see the return of empty supermarket shelves again, not that they ever fully went away. And all this in the name of regaining control that we never lost, while losing so many benefits that the Brexit cult never valued. No wonder that America, whether Democrat or Republican, looks at the state that the UK is in and thinks, a trade deal? No thanks, buddy.